Hello again. Christina Forbes here, wife of seriously injured worker Lauren Forbes. So this will be part 2 of pensions and permanent disability and so on. So, as I mentioned in the first video, they had awarded him $12,858.79 from permanent disability entitlement from September 4th, 2006 to July 21st, 2008. But WorkSafeBC deducted $11,269.16 to cover the periods during which he received wage loss benefits and or vocational rehabilitation allowances following the effective date of the award. So, okay. Pretty much the way my husband looks at it is he's just paid for his own torture. That's pretty much the way I see it too. Why do injured workers have to pay that back? I'm sorry, but those steps were all things that needed to be done. He didn't ask to do those things. He was cooperative, followed the Workers' Compensation Act, did what he was supposed to do, you know. I don't understand. Why? Okay, so he plateaued September 04, 2006. They have him plateauing at. So medically plateaued. It's not going to get any better. That's it. But yet, after 2006, so that's not even quite a year after his actual initial injury, that they had him medically plateaued. Not even a full year. He's medically plateaued. It's not going to get any better. No other options to help him. That's it. Well, there was other options. They were discussed. Even with Dr. Van Setter, the orthopedic surgeon that enjoys taking WCB money. Like removing the screw, maybe doing some other work. But none of that was looked into. None of that was further discussed. That was it. After September 4th, 2006, though, he went off to, he was still doing rehabilitation, went off to, in 2007, he went off to Orion Pain Clinic in Richmond, the torture facility. And still, these are all things that were required of him, right? Because he was looking at other avenues of work other than drywall. But the lady at North Island Employment Services said, well, Lauren's got some pain barriers and some medication issues he needs to work on. So off to a pain program he went to deal with that. When we talk about that, you'll see not much therapy was done. It was pretty much just concentration on... It was a detox center, pretty much, on working on lowering his medication and so on and so forth like that. So, and then he sat around pretty much entirely for a whole fucking year, pretty much. Like, he sat around. Like, wasn't required to look for a job or to work with other, he wasn't even required to do rehab, like going to physiotherapy during that time. Just sat around. And then 6 months ago, on with the drafting after they've exhausted numerous things and so on and so forth. So, these are all steps that are required. If they knew back kind of sort of last year or whatever, but the disabilities gentleman, the doctor, Dr. Bland, that actually did both of his exams, had stated he couldn't use the first exam because Lauren was too pain-focused. Well, Lauren had to drive himself there because Workers' Compensation didn't pay for transportation. He really wanted to drive. He was trying to drive, not safely at all. But at that time, we still owned the Camaro, and it was a standard, and it was just a whole messed up situation. So pain-focused by the time he did the 5-hour drive down to Nanaimo, yes, he was. He discussed this with the doctor, so on and so forth. So I'm trying to piece a few things together so you see where we're all at with this whole you know, how injured workers have to pretty much pay for their own rehabilitation. Now, Lauren and I were kind of lucky enough to you know, with our lawyer that we had there a couple of years ago, stated, you know, whatever your avenues are, do not apply for CPP. Avoid Canadian pension plan as much as you can. Workers' compensation takes 50% of your awards in repaying for that to go back. So not only are injured workers getting shafted once because they have to pay for their own vocational rehabilitation benefits and so on and so forth, but if they happened to have collected CPP on top of that, 50% of whatever's left is given back to CPP to pay for whatever you had during that time. So, I mean, this is just turning into one big cluster of bullshit. And this is the thing that injured workers have to, you know, go through, and it's ridiculous. And you know, when it was funny because Lauren was, just as I had mentioned in the earlier video, that Lauren was mentioning he was getting in contact with, you know, some of the gentlemen and stuff that he had met at the Orion program, and got in contact with one gentleman who had finally, after, you know, 4 years, been awarded his disability award, and had to pay back over $50,000 worth of vocational rehabilitation payments and wage loss benefits. Over $50,000. Holy shit. You know, Lauren had to pay back $11,000. So, I mean, could you imagine if he had to pay back CPP at the same time? But that's just it. A lot of injured workers, or seriously injured workers anyways, end up trying to pull all their resources together and do make that mistake of applying for CPP, and they do have to pay back 50%, which gets to this whole topic of David Anderson and how the fucking asshole gloats that he's, you know, their company's making all this money. This is why they're making all that money right there, because they're taking it back from the injured worker on what they are rightfully entitled to, and that's poppycock. That's it. That is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, so it says here that future payments will be made at the end of each month in the amount of $566.90, beginning with the August 2008 payment. Please see the attached pension calculation sheets for details on how your award was calculated. Accepting this award does not affect your right to have your claim reviewed should there be significant change in your medical condition or recurrence of your injury. If this information is unclear, yada yada, if you disagree with my decision, you have the right to request the review by the review division. A request for review must be filed within 90 days. So, this payment may affect your income tax credit status for the current year. WorkSafeBC is unable to provide technical answers to taxation questions. You may therefore wish to contact your local Revenue Canada agency. So, that's where that is. And so, wow. My husband, I'm going to try and get him, encourage him to post his thoughts on this. I really do, because he's got some great thoughts, and I really just want him to kind of vent a little bit, so I'm really hoping over the next couple of days I'll be able to get him to put a video up. You know, because the injured workers, actually, the guys and stuff that are there can relate to a lot of the things that he's got to say. So back to David Anderson and that whole bit on the BC Business Online thing there. What a load of shit. You know, all those comments, they make great points. And David Anderson, you are profiting off of injured workers, directly off of injured workers. And having injured workers have to pay, they don't know this. No one tells them that they'll be paying this back. You know, or I think if they knew that, most of them probably would just stop at the first mention of medical plateau, right? So I'm ending at the 10-minute mark. I'm going to go on and do a third video because I've got a lot to say, and we're actually going to look over the pension thing because I think it's important. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned for video 3.